for educational purposes and live streamed. And we will start recording. If everyone's good, thumbs up. Yep, we'll start. Okay, so again,
all right.
Hello everyone. Thank you for tuning in wherever you're in the world or watching back. This is day 5 of the Intersectional Infinity Summit, hosted by the Neurodivergent Infinity Network of Educators. Thank you for watching our live Zoom panel. Tonight's topic of discussion will be why autistic acceptance is essential, how to live authentically in a world that thinks we're broken. My name's Matty, pronouns him, he, him, existential autist on the interwebs. Thank you for being here, and I'll pass you over to our host and founder of the summit, Karen Tim.
Thank you so much, Maddie. I appreciate it. As Maddie said, my name is Karen Tim, pronouns she, her. I failed to mention that on Twitter, I am at Karen and Tim, but I feel more comfortable as like at neurodiversity in principle with an AL. And it's a play on words, as you know, many of us like to do. But I am a school administrator. I'm an educator, a leader and an advocate, and founder of the Neurodivergent Infinity Network of Educators, many of whom have worked very hard to put together the Intersectional Infinity Summit. You know that I'm getting tired. We've been going strong since Sunday, early morning Sunday, where it first started to turn Sunday. And very excited to be here tonight for this panel. I called it a powerhouse panel. There's just no stopping us when we get together, and so honored to be here with you all. As Maddie said, we are recording this. We will be posting this to the 9 YouTube channel afterwards, and we are live streaming currently on the Almazar Falkirk YouTube channel, and I want to give a shout out to Almazar CEO and founder Sophia, and thank you so much. Also a member, affiliate member, but a member, because really everyone is affiliated. This is a massive community. Sophia was, I think, our first international member, and so thank you so much. You've been instrumental in helping put all these things together, and certainly helping with tech. What I thought we could do is begin with our land acknowledgement. In many parts of the world we do that to acknowledge our Indigenous communities and people and relationship with the land. So I'd like to begin with that, and then we will move into introductions. We would like to acknowledge that many Indigenous nations from across Turtle Island and across the world have longstanding relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories and lands upon which our advocacy and community leadership occur. We would like to acknowledge the traditional, ancestral, unceded territories of these nations, as the struggle for Indigenous rights is deeply connected to all human rights work. When we recognize the systemic and social connections within our work, it is also essential that we refuse to historicize these struggles, because doing so ignores the impact of colonial oppression, which persists today. In our advocacy efforts, we are committed to disrupting and dismantling the systems of oppression that have dispossessed Indigenous peoples of their lands and denied their rights to self-determination. This work is essential to human rights work across the world. So again, I want to thank everyone for joining us. I know we come from all around the world, all different time zones, all different lenses on the world, but what brings us together is neurodivergency, and certainly many of us identify as autistic or multiply neurodivergent. I identify as autistic, but also multiply neurodivergent. And I was later diagnosed. I visually, I'm a white woman with long brownish type hair. There is purple in there, believe it or not. Purple tinted glasses. I have a purple headband on right now, and behind me, the wall is a wood paneled wall. with a etching of a tree on brown wood panels. I wonder if I could turn it over. Can I go from left to right again? I'll go to Lyric first. You're over there, if you don't mind.
Yeah, my name is Lyric Holmans. I'm a pale-skinned, multiracial human with short hair that is green, orange, and purple, and shaved sides, and the little dark hairs are showing. I need to get my roots. My black roots are sticking out at least an inch at this point. And I'm sitting here in this RV on a gray sofa with a window behind me and a bunch of my fun glittery stim balls sitting here as I hang out casually in my tank top on the couch with a shiny silver ball in my hand. And I'm autistic. I'm also ADHD, late diagnosed. And I was autistic until I was diagnosed at 29. The ADHD was diagnosed, I think it was early last year. I'm terrible with numbers and timelines, but recently. So all of this is recently, and it really changed and saved my life. I was actually corresponding with the person who diagnosed me earlier today, and I said, "You don't have any idea how much this diagnosis saved my life." And that realization that having that information is life-saving and life-changing and healing has been one of the main things that drives me to teach and educate and share my experiences of being a late discovered autistic multiply neurodivergent adult. I'm also non-binary, so I use they them pronouns. Really, any gender neutral pronoun is good with me. Just try not to she me. I appreciate it. No accidents happen. But yeah, that's it. I'm here. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited. This is like it's been said many times, this is a freaking powerhouse of people here. So it's an honor to be here with all of you today. So thank you.
It's powerhouse, but also when you say it's an honor to be here, I said before, you've changed the lives of so many, as have many of the people here in this space. And so I think what's so amazing about our community is that we're really not a hierarchical bunch. And that's what's so amazing is you reach out to people and, Autistic did our intro, right? You just got to ask. Marenike was speaking to us last night. It was last night, right, friends? It's just amazing. And to each of you, I feel so humbled and so honored to be chairing the summit and here with you all. So thank you, Lyric, for that. The next of our panel, Alyssa, Hillary Zisk, would you mind introducing yourself?
My name is Alyssa. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I am a white human with dark brown hair in front of a blurred background. I am at yes_that2 on Twitter. I can speak some of the time but not all of the time. I use augmentative and alternative communication when speech does not meet my needs. I am definitely autistic and aphantasiac. I may be neurodivergent in other ways too.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Alyssa, would you like us to call you Alyssa Hillary or Alyssa?
Alyssa is good.
Thank you so much for confirming. I was observing a panel last night with a non-speaking autistic. It was actually a presentation to the Canadian government, and there was not time provided. They did an excellent job, by the way, so we have to broadcast how they did. It was Anne Borden and Vivian Lee, and they did an amazing job. But the non-speaker of the pair, Vivian, was, I felt, not given very much time to provide answers and to also have quiet time. And so before we introduce the next person, Alyssa, could you just share, because this may be new for many of us, what is your preference? Would you like us to leave quiet space? Would you like us to pause and move on to another speaker while you are typing your answers? Can you give us a little intro that way, please?
If a question is addressed specifically to me, please wait. If it is addressed to multiple panelists, someone else can go first while I type.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you clarifying that. We're all co-learners here, right? And really appreciate that. So the next to introduce themselves is Sophia, if you wouldn't mind, please.
I was not expecting that, but yes, okay, thank you. I'm too busy doing other things, as usual. Yeah, so mine's Sophia. Not Sophia, Sophia. Please, I had to put this audio to.
Sorry.
There's a government ad coming out next week with my voice and my wee animation of me, as you've seen, an improved version. And they wrote, "Here, Sophia." I'm like, no, if this is going to go public, I would like my name nicely done. So, Sophia, please. About me, I lost my train of thought now. I'm ADHD, you might have guessed that already. Didn't have to tell you that. Late diagnosed ADHD and autistic, dyspraxic, and mirrors Erlene with the orange glasses. I am a maths teacher. I absolutely love teaching math. That's my joy. That's basically better than any sort of, I don't know, depressive medication that you could help me with. That's what helps me with my serotonin. It is definitely the maths. The harder, the better. It's fun. Anyway, what else? I'm a magnet at attracting neurodivergent learners. I just discovered another one today, and I had another one last month and one month before that. So I just like all the kids. I'm a private tutor, I should say. And it just happens to be that everyone that comes my way is either dyslexic, dyspraxic, ADHD, has dyscalculia. One time I spent 5-10 minutes with a boy online on Zoom, and I'm like, and I spoke to the mother, do you know your son's very, very probably autistic? And then she's like, oh my God. And tears were streaming down this poor woman's eyes, like, and now he's getting his diagnosis. So I just feel like this is my purpose now. I finally found it. This is what I'm all about. It is to talk in spaces where it's not talked about. I hope that by me doing this and working with almost our community over here in Falkirk, Scotland and UK wide, we can see that neurodiversity is basically biodiversity, and that neurodivergent is not limited to male, pale, stale. You know, we're all different. And we want to stop this whole stereotyping and all that nonsense that goes on, and that's what I'm all about. I'm also a domestic abuse survivor, and I talk about that quite often because that comes part and parcel of me being autistic, and the lack of support and the victimization and all that I have experienced, because that's part of my narrative, and I want to empower other people who are survivors of domestic abuse to speak their truth and to make sure that they're not alone. Because the more our stories go out, the more we will be able to help people and save lives. Let's just say, right? We will hopefully, our intentions are to save lives. That's why we're here today as well. And I'll pass it back to you, Karen.
Thank you so much. Appreciate all of that. And next on our scheduled panel, we have Prince X Calamity, if you wouldn't mind.
Hi, I go by Prince X Calamity, she, they pronouns. I'm a Black human with glasses, shoulder length, dark brown and like lighter brown hair. I'm wearing blue headphones, and I have a rainbow shirt that says Pride, Power, Makeup, and has Sailor Moon things on it. Oh, and I have a space background. It's like space and mountains. I am a content creator and game developer who is late diagnosed autistic, late self-diagnosed autistic, and also late diagnosed ADHD. And I just love I don't know, bringing sort of my experiences into gaming and game development, and just seeing how I can bring my experiences and the experience of other neurodiverse people into games, but also make it more normalized among gamers. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. And then next, and again, in no specific order, I'm just moving along in the panel who are scheduled. We've got Maddie here, Maddie Lacey. Go ahead, Maddie.
Thank you very much, Karen. Absolute pleasure to be here. Yeah, my name's Matty. Existential Autist on Twitter and the interwebs, as I alluded to at the beginning. Pronouns are he, him. I'm a white human with a big kind of red ginger auburn beard here going on. I don't know what's quite going on. Some spiky brownish auburn hair. I've got this rainbow shirt kind of combo from a festival a few years ago that's multicolored, patched kind of work. And yes, I'm proudly autistic, ADHD, neurodivergent, and dyspraxic. I believe I'm partly dyslexic as well, but I've not had the access to official diagnosis with that. And I'm very passionate about being involved in advocacy and activism. And my background is within existentialist philosophy and connecting that with art. And today's topic of conversation being an authentic autistic self is very key to me. Also, I'm a spoken word poet and performer and a men's mental health charity facilitator in the past, and doing a lot of that on Twitter right now, and a lot more to be announced in future on multiple other platforms. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be part of the Nine, and yeah, thank everybody for coming here and willing to learn a lot more. I believe all autistics are great educators and co-learners together, and we can and will change the world to be neurodivergent, empowered, and accepting truly. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Maddie. I appreciate that. And again, a shout out to you, everyone. I have so much respect for that's here on the panel. But along with Sophia, you have been instrumental in helping to certainly advertise your that's where we met. We met on Twitter, but Maddie has been instrumental and in helping to advertise, and just such a tremendous support, as I know many organizations feel the same way. So we're here. This is we call it hard work, but it's also heart work, and you definitely bring a lot of heart to this. So appreciate all that you do. And so next in our list, scheduled, certainly not last, last but not least, certainly Kai Kennedy. What could I ask that you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Karen. Yes, my name is Kai. My pronouns are they, them, unless you are Black, then you can use she, her. And I am a Black femme wearing all Black, sitting in kind of like a deep forest green chair. Hi, Aubrey, and my daughter is in the background. Do you want to come say hi? Oh, you don't want to say hi? Okay, she's decided she doesn't want to. And I am co-founder and CEO of Autistic's Unmasked, a mother, obviously, a lactation consultant. Hi. Oh, you want to climb behind me? Okay. And I'm also holding a red little stim ball, so if you hear jingling, that is not your imagination. It is my favorite stim toy. Are you stuck? And that's about it for me before my daughter decides to treat me like Mount Everest.
Thank you so much, Kai. And again, oh, sorry, Sophia, go ahead.
I was just going to add something because I just realised, as usual, I want to add something that I forgot. I messaged it to you. I thought I'd say it out loud because we are recording. I am very proudly to say I am a Scottish Pakistani. I wouldn't say British, so don't call me British. I'm a Scottish Pakistani, headscarf wearing, probably the only South Asian CEO, head of charity in Scotland, openly autistic, should I say. And I do hope that there'll be many more that follow me on this. But yeah, just to add that in there. And I'm dressed in raspberry ripple today. I've got my cream and my peach, but I look like ice cream, to be honest. But now I need ice cream. Anyway, off you go.
Thanks so much. And yes, further to what you just said, we do have the Nine is definitely a global group, and we also have people from around the world. It is a global summit, which, you know, I'm really so proud of the work we've all done together in partnerships and forming partnerships. And even since the beginning of the summit, we like to say it's very organic, right? We scheduled some stuff. we got that going, but every day there are new partnerships, new relationships. I said to Alyssa earlier today, like, she's got a new fangirl, because, you know, we're just meeting new people and collaborating and seeing new opportunities every time we do things like this. So again, so humbled to be here. And Natasha's saying ice cream party next. Is that because of, I'm not sure if that's because of the raspberry ripple you heard. I think you're hungry.
No. It says, Alyssa said, now I want ice cream. I said, me too. Calamity said same. And then we were talking about, so like, let's do ice cream party next. I think people are in.
I'm trying to manage my wonderful dog here, who makes guest appearances on the announcements in the morning for our online campus, while also managing the chat and coping with sleep deprivation. I'm certain, which I'm sure many of us are doing. But in any case, so the purpose, as Maddie said, Maddie, do you want to read the title just once more, if you don't mind, so that we kind of reset where we're at? I have it here.
Yes.
If you don't have it.
Oh no. Yes, I can get that there. Yeah, just give me a second. Just all the talk of the ice cream, and yeah, all ice cream types welcome as well. Want to include that.
Right.
Just to be very clear to anybody, yes, as long as there's vegan ice cream, every style and blend accepted and savoured. I will get that right up.
I've got it. It's okay. I've got it.
Go with it. I'd like to say this.
Okay.
Yes. No. On the spot. I'm going to follow through. Yeah. So yes. So thanks for joining the Intersectional Infinity live panel day 5. So the title of our discussion in the world, internationally, which different time zones we're in, is why autistic acceptance is essential. How to live authentically in a world that thinks we're broken. And also just a little point as well to those in the Zoom call and session. We really do appreciate the comments and feedback and people getting involved if you're watching the live stream on YouTube. And if you could use the hashtag Intersectional Infinity and just post anything you've enjoyed or like to see collaboration in future, that really helps as we're, you know, grassroots internationally, and you know, we don't get a lot of the some of the points of marketing that others may have. So you're very much appreciated in that. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Maddie. And just for thank you. It's a very well-behaved group tonight, I have to say. And I'm not meaning the panelists, I mean our guests. As you know, we are live streaming on YouTube from the Almazar YouTube channel. And our guests that are here in the room with us, we have panelists who may or may not be on or off camera, may or may not be mic'd, may or may not use AAC. But we just ask that during our panel discussion, that we maintain the chat box for questions, if you have questions for people that are in the room but not on the actual panel for this time. And then if we have time, we'll open up a little bit of the dialogue. We do have some educators here in the room. We've got lots of people I know that are watching in the live stream and that will be watching later in the recording. So we just want to make sure that we're cognizant of time. And oh, are you saying I spoke too soon, or is that something separate? I'm reading the chat. See, it's distracting me. I need to just turn the chat off. I think I'm going to turn the chat off for me. So somebody else is going to have to watch it because it's too distracting. So let's get right into it. You know, when we think about the idea of being broken, one of the questions around this time of month is, I'm going to peel the Band-Aid off. One of the questions that comes up right now is, you know, what should we do for April? And I'm talking from educators, from the community, because sometimes there's a difference between intent and impact. And oftentimes educators and family members are wanting to show support. They are wanting to, you know, do what they can to learn how to be allies and to be allies. But sometimes their ideas of allyship are not aligned with what we need and what we want. So how do you all feel about April? That's what I want to know. How do you all feel about April?
Do you really want to know though? Do you really want to know? I hate it. I hate it so much. Like all year. This is an all year problem. Like people not understanding autistic people not understanding that one autistic person is not like the next person you're going to meet, and that we're all different. I talk and teach every day, all year. And then in April, all of a sudden, there are these, I guess I'll call them autism tourists, that all of a sudden like care or want to care for 30 days. And a lot of the times, the things that even the people who mean well and aren't just trying to come in and be exploitive, often are sharing things that are harmful or problematic or continue to increase stigma instead of empowering autistic people and amplifying autistic voices, and helping us to be understood and accepted instead of thinking, oh, be afraid, autistic people will ruin your life somehow. That's kind of the vibe that comes around in April. And it's like, I feel like every April it's like, oh, I thought we had made progress, and then April comes and I feel like, I'm like, did we really make progress? I thought we were past this, and it's like, oh, this again. And then hopefully it'll be gone, by mid-May. But I dread it every year, honestly.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's very common. I think a lot of us. I started calling it like the dreaded April. That's why we did the summit the week before April, because we wanted to make a dent, right? It's that last ditch effort to try and make a dent and spread the word. Kai, you've got your hand up, and thank you for that. Go ahead.
I was going to say that my feelings towards April might not necessarily be universal, in that this is my first April as knowing that I'm autistic. And so despite the fact that throughout, the rest, since I learned and since now, or through to now, I have been, doing a lot of education on social media, especially on Twitter, specifically a little bit on Facebook, not as much. I am taking this April specifically as like an opportunity to just really go hard, and, bearing in mind burnout is very real. But like we have like a whole social media calendar for a post a day on Instagram to combat everything that other people are going to be posting. And I feel one, that this summit has definitely made a dent. At least I can see the effects of it from people that I've shared, the registration links to and everything like that. And they've attended the sessions and said that they've learned so much information, and they're going out and telling their friends. So I can see the difference for sure. And I'm sure that April, now I'm looking at it through a new lens, because, last April was probably the first April that I knew of as Autism Acceptance Month, but this April being the first April that I know that I'm autistic, it's completely, looking at the month completely differently, from being the sibling of somebody who's autistic to being an autistic person is a very different experience for April, I'm sure. So I'm actually a little bit excited. I know that there's going to be a lot of just ridiculous things happening. For lack of a better word, or maybe to censor what word I really want to use. But just a lot of ridiculous things happening. And I'm still excited for it, honestly, because I'm excited to see, to potentially be connected with more autistic people. I know that I'm not the only one who feels this way about, really going hard in April, because we know what's coming. And I think that just gives even more opportunity for us to find each other and connect and get stronger and grow our community in numbers. So I'm really looking forward to seeing who else comes out of April as an advocate, or knowing that they're autistic, or, whatever the case is. I'm really excited about it.
Thank you so much for that, Kai. I think this year is a real difference, right? We're feeling a shift, but we need to keep the momentum going. So thank you for that. Prince X, thank you for putting your hand up. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to say that this is my second. sorry, my wire got caught. This is my second April knowing that I am autistic. So last year, I really felt very similar to Kai. And this year, though, I think it's a bit like when Black History Month rolls around or when Pride Month rolls around. It's kind of like, all right, everyone's icons are going to change and for a month, and suddenly I'm going to get people coming out of the woodwork to like contact me to do things that probably wouldn't look at me any other time of the year. So it does come with that, like, here we go again. But it is nice because there is an ability to connect and, you know, in my own way, like educate or, you know, bring awareness. But it's exhausting. You just kind of predict the burnout ahead of time. You just kind of know you're going to be tired by the end of the month.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I know there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think that's what I find the most exhausting, because that idea of intent impact, it hits you hard, because we often will dig deeper because it impacts us, right? And that, I think that's true in all aspects of communities where people are marginalized. But when April hits, it's kind of like there's this great big festivity that's really and truly about us without us. and that's the exact opposite of what all movements are trying to say, right? We say nothing about us without us, but organizations make decisions. And I'm not talking just about those big ones that we all know, but I'm talking, you know, school boards and you know, government agencies, about what colors they put the flags at, or the, you know, the lights up and what have you. Alyssa, please go ahead.
I sometimes call April Autistic Hell Month. I do my best to ignore April. Last year my dissertation defense in April kept me busy. I could not pay too much attention to Autistic Hell Month because I was too busy trying to become Dr. Zisk. This year I have a survey active during April, so I do not get to ignore it. We started sharing it before April because I knew many autistic people would be too tired to participate once April got underway.
Thank you so much. I'll try to watch for thumbs up, Alyssa, too. Thank you for doing that. That's me trying to learn, because I want to give you the space and time. So thank you for helping me. So any other thoughts about April, or just not even so much how it makes us feel, depending on our positionality and our life experiences with April being diagnosed or acknowledging our own autistic reality, but about ways that it is quote unquote celebrated or acknowledged. Because I mean, in the past, there's been different campaigns that are associated with different organizations. I know I certainly try to think about that idea of Light It Up Gold. But I'm also a big fan of the hashtag Red Instead movement, because it is a bit of a protest against a different color that shall remain colorless. But I wonder if anybody, oh yeah, I see hands up. Okay, Maddie, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks very much. Just building on that, about back to the amazing point about exploitation and tokenism of the month, how the narrative isn't led by or allowed to be led by those actually autistic voices and neurodivergent experiences. and just how in previous experiences, that if this has been with national news companies or an interview, going back to a time where I'd done something with a leading organisation about hidden disabilities and awareness, right? It was this either tragedy narrative or kind of portraying an overcoming, not embracing an authentic being and allowing myself to have any say over the direction of what was being broadcast. And also, I'd like to say how autistic time and disabled time and neurodivergent time, relating to many other marginalisations as well, with race, sex, class, and gender, the money, the finance, people's time not being given equitable standards. Why is these payments not being made to those in the world that we know are struggling financially, that governments have ripped income, that have not supported during the pandemic? So it's this thing of, well, we've done our bit. Just feel grateful that your emotional labour, your ideas, your very sense of being is being broadcast to the world. And I think for people with the privilege to do this out of the love of advocacy, yet when you have national corporations doing this, who have vast pockets of money to do exactly these things, they're not even given that. It's still very much to tick the quota of what we've done to be, for example, a neurodivergent inclusive or disability accredited employer, when they're not, where things haven't been adjusted in the UK and in other international quotas for financial support and time. So, everyone preach this narrative of, well, let's just celebrate autistics getting into work and businesses. Yet the time we are given is not given any equitable standard, because it's like, be grateful that you've even had time on the screen. And that's and again, that's still overcoming and the privilege of being a white cisgender guy with that. And, supposedly or verbally speaking, I can be selectively mute. But again, I very felt it was a overcoming narrative of, look at this guy, it's not so bad in that sense, but that felt very exploitative. So that was my thoughts just on that, on a wide feeling of it. Yeah, there needs to be that equity that is still so tokenistic, and it does a lot of emotional damage, and I think leads to that mental health problems also in the community of worth and self-value.
Thank you, Maddie. Definitely so many layers to that, right? And I just want to make sure to acknowledge, so Alyssa has put in the chat the survey there. By the way, the survey, words matter. What words do you prefer when talking about AAC and the people that use it? Fill in the survey and tell us your preferences. So there is a link there, which certainly, yeah, and you can also help by sharing the link. Yes, absolutely. So please do share that widely, so we can get as many, or so Alyssa can get as many responses as possible. And Prince X, during what Maddie was saying, was just saying, I want to throw things, all of this, ugh. Yes, we feel that for sure. I know that Natasha had her hand up, and Natasha is one of our valued members of the 9 here. I think what she's going to do is send me the question or text it in the chat to the panelists, so that we can kind of ruminate on what the question is, just so we can honor the folks and get all the answers out as efficiently as we can. So thank you so much, Natasha. I know everybody's chomping at the bit to get questions to us. Sophie, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
The solution sounds really simple, but why is it so hard to implement? Can we not just have truly, like, our practices to be based on human rights? Can we just be treated as humans? Simple. Why is it so hard? It's because the people who don't allow it are the ones who benefit from other people being marginalized. So we need to start questioning, who is it that's benefiting from not giving these human rights to humans? Why, and why are we giving them that space and that oxygen?
Yeah, it that's, I think, a really important piece in education today. Many boards of education and businesses are trying to draft and publish their human rights policies in alignment with international human rights. But what's on paper doesn't necessarily match what's in practice. And when we think about the difference between what maybe autistics think is the right way to go, align with human rights, it's not necessarily matching what the businesses or the organizations or the experts, right? That dangerous word, experts, what they believe. And I know in education it's extremely challenging because educators come into this not receiving really much authentic information and understanding about autistic realities from autistic perspectives. And I think that huge gap is something that we have to obviously need to work on. So Natasha's question was about April. I don't know if there was something specific about April or if we've covered it. Do you want to give us a thumbs up if you're good with that?
No, there was a lot more, but I can save it till the end.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So I guess, and I don't want to like lead the conversation necessarily. I just want to give us sort of some prompting ideas. I'm wondering, and many educators are wondering, how do we know what's the right language? What are the right symbols? What are the right, just how do we know what we don't know as educators in order to be allies when we haven't been taught in university? We haven't been taught. I mean, I'm an autistic adult, and everything that I've been taught by my systems is wrong. And that's a big risk that I'm taking. I'll just put it out there by saying that. I have all respect to all the people that I've worked with in the past, but even our provincial, leaders who are running professional development for school leaders, their professional development is not informed by actually autistic people. Kai, go ahead.
So I think that as educators at this point, it's best to assume that you don't know anything, and then immediately seek out answers from people who are in that community. And that can go even just outside of being autistic, right? But I can talk about like Black History Month, assume you don't know anything and reach out to the Black community. But more specifically, it's the topic of the panel here. We're talking about autism. Yeah, assume you don't know a single thing. Assume you've never been taught a single correct thing in your life in regards to autism and the autistic community, and immediately seek answers from people who are actually autistic. I mean, obviously we are all here. We are in such great numbers. We're on social media everywhere. We make ourselves known because we want this information out there. I think that it would not be very difficult to find an autistic person, with a quick Google search or Twitter search using the hashtag actually autistic. You'll find so many people talking about, education and how you can make classrooms more inclusive from the perspective of somebody who is autistic and used to be a student or is a student or is now a teacher or whatever the case is. Just assume you don't know. Assume you have no idea what's going on, and look to the actual community for answers.
For sure. And Natasha says what I think a lot of educators feel, that I feel a lot of pressure as an educator to do it right. And I think we all come into our careers with these high hopes of wanting to change the world and help, reach every student, and, but success looks so different for every student. And the power of a great teacher can really change the trajectory, right? But teaching is not about curriculum. It has to start with the individual person. The curriculum you can access the curriculum if you know the person, if you know how to meet needs, right? Alyssa, go ahead.
If you are thinking about doing an awareness event but do not know where to find autistic experts to help you do it right, or do not have the budget to hire one, remember that there is the option of not doing an event.
Yeah. Well, this is Lyric. I would agree with everything that's been said so far. Like the teacher, because I've done some work with educators in our local Texas education systems and with some schools in different different scenarios, and I sometimes I only have an hour or 45 minutes.
Is Lyric frozen to you all? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Lyric,
you look extremely intense in a profound moment, but I think we're losing your connection.
In perspective, it's the stuff panel right here with sick. Know the basics, That.
Sorry, Lyric, I don't know if you can hear us okay. I think your internet's going in and out. Do you want to try and turn off your camera and see if that helps with bandwidth? Because we missed that last point that you made. At least I did. Is everybody in agreement? Okay, I think Lyric's going to go out and come back in. Maddie says they can't handle Lyrics.
Yeah, can't handle Lyric. They can't handle Lyrics. Actually, autistic truth. We'll persevere. There's no stopping with.
Yeah, that's okay.
Like Zoom crashed.
That's okay. Try again, and if it's the bandwidth is wacky, maybe try turning off the your camera. But I think you're back okay. Like you're moving now. At least I can see you moving.
My laptop got really hot, and it's like freaking out. So I hope it doesn't do this again. I think it's just too hot in here, and I didn't know this because sensory things. So I turned on the AC. Hopefully that'll help. So I was going to say, I've done a lot of work with educators in schools and the Texas school systems, actually all over the country now with Zoom, yay. And in just 45 minutes, doing the most basic, am I frozen again?
Nope, you're good.
Okay, y'all are frozen. I'm gonna turn off my video just in case. So, in just 45 minutes to an hour, doing the most basic things that I feel like everyone in this room would take for granted as, of course, these are the basics. These educators are like, this changed my entire worldview of autistic people, of neurodivergent kids. And I've been a special education director for years. It's like they really don't even know the basics because what they've been showed is so wrong. So we've got a lot of work to do. We need so many people out here doing this and teaching, because each of us only has so much bandwidth. I only do 2 to 4 clients in 1 month, depending on what I'm doing with them. And sometimes I can't even do that much because I burn out a lot quicker like now. But there's so many autistic people out there, but really they need a human angle of it. They don't have a human angle. They have an angle that only looks at us as if we are problems and misses the beauty of the neurodivergent experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the chat, there was just some jokes a little bit about the truth, right? And because the truth is scary to some people. And Natasha said that you can't handle the truth. We know where that's from. Alyssa was just saying face palm, but the same experience, right? People don't know what they don't know. Maxine is just acknowledging. I think that's related to Lyric's picture, your angel wings. Yeah, I love that picture, Maxine is saying. So thank you for those comments in the chat. So if educators are not sure where to go, and imagine families who are receiving information about their child being newly diagnosed, or they're receiving information from educators about their child having behavior problems or what have you. Like if the topic we're considering is a world that thinks we're broken, right? That's part of it. So what is it? Why does the world think that we're broken? And if we think of the history of autism and like what's happened that people think we're broken? I guess that's sort of what I'm curious about. Yeah, Natasha's saying fear. I mean, oh, and Maxine's put another question in the chat as well, which I will read out. So as teachers and parents and guardians of autistic kids, we know that representation matters. And the resources, the books, the, picture books, if we're trying to read to our kids, videos, professional resources, they're limited. And it's hard to know which ones best represent the autistic perspective. So are there any resources that you might suggest, or what criteria should we use to decide if a resource is one that we should use? Because we don't want to do more harm than good. And it might not be specific resources, and that's okay, but just like what should we look for as educators? I know I want you go ahead. Yeah, Sophia. Yeah.
Actually autistic adults. Ta-da! How about also resources made by such actually autistic adults? Because in this day and age, we've got everything at our fingertips. We just choose what we want to look at, and so make the right choices.
For sure. And Prince X, go ahead.
Yeah, just echoing that, I was gonna say maybe like start asking autistic adults what they would have liked to have, things that could have benefited them, ways they've learned over time to, take care of themselves, and also not just asking them, but paying them.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that. And I mean, tied to that, oh yeah, Kai's clapping, and I think it was Jacqueline. I think I just caught it on the side of my hand. There was a heart there. The idea of representation matters. What does it look like to be autistic? We know there is no look. So representation matters. When I'm looking for books for students or family members, or, I need to see Black autistics. I need to see AAC using autistics. I need to see those who are, diverse in multiple ways, transgender, or those who identify as autigender autistics. We need to see multiply, diverse folks in these representations. Alyssa, go ahead, please.
I prefer resources that treat neurodivergent characters as human characters who do things for human reasons. Learning to understand the actions of different others and their reasons through stories is possible, if the stories give reasons beyond because they are broken in this named way. If you read a story about a person who acts for reasons, it's easier to understand that story if you 1. Might have similar reasons for action, and 2. Would get similar effects from similar actions. Both conditions can be violated in cross-cultural communication and in cross-neurotype communication, but you can still try.
Thank you so much. And Maddie, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. In terms of those looking to learn more and other teachers, Yes, absolutely. Asking autistics, adults, children, and those who've been in education, maybe if they've had a teacher in their life as an example of good practice and who's been inspirational to them, how they've humanized an autistic student, a neurodivergent student, and has not stopped them stimming, has allowed their full self to be embraced, and linking it back to intersectionality, that too many of who don't appear, the white little boy, that stimming isn't violence. That those black children or trans community in different genders, it's not violence. It's not being disruptive. It's not something inherently wrong or bad to all autistics, but learning about that as well from marginalized communities and removing that hierarchy of autism being gate-kept. We still see this as a gate-kept thing when it's, too difficult for the teacher and the amount of exclusions. And I think learning from the examples of so many, the amazing international autistic people, not just, because of advocacy, achievements, and reach and different things, it's that human element, the power of the collective, and that we don't need to be all the time extraordinary as well, because that's exhausting. And this is why learning about how the deficiency model of autism and how behaviorism link into, continually amplifying that applied behavioral analysis is a human rights abuse. That PBS, positive behavioral support, is built upon the principles of conversion therapy, linked to those who are gay. Apologies about the language, a lot of emotions with this. That it's saying, we have been dehumanized as shells of people, and that the effect that has to learn of the long-term effects of PTSD that's had on older adults, but also how we can still thrive and be defiant and proud in the face of all of this. And that is education, right? Allowing a child, a person, to be their authentic self. That is the ultimate goal I would feel as an educator, providing that safety, but also showing that strength and determination when kids and adults' rights are being abused. And this also links to infantilization, that it's not going to go away, it's not to be overcome. Autism, being autistic, is the future in neurodivergence. So, but yeah, I'd love to hear from everybody else on this.
Yeah, and I want to before I don't want to get caught with the missing the chat, just related to this conversation. Prince X is saying, I'm not a hero, I'm a human, and I want to be treated like one. Start there for every type of care you want to provide. And in books, same thing, right? It's not always the superpower version, or the you're being rescued by the ally who came to your rescue, right? It just, and hijabi autistics, yes. Thank you, Sophia, because I saw that and I was like, oh yes, absolutely, we need to see representation. And then let's see. Oh yeah, and Hall is also saying, I'm willing to help on any project, providing they have the spoons. Just contact me on my Twitter, and Twitter is there in the chat for you. So somebody's trying to get into the chat. Is there anyone in the waiting room? That's what you're saying, Kai? Not that we can see, but maybe just message them back and let them know that they can live stream on Al-Mazar's page. That's probably our safest route to go, because we don't want anybody to miss out. The session is being recorded, as we know, and I apologize if somebody's not able to get in, but thank you for passing that message on. In some cases, people who registered a little bit later, maybe they didn't get the email, but it sounds like this person got the email and is having trouble getting in, so not sure why that is. Thank you for putting the chat, the website in the chat too, so Sophia, that's fantastic. So just want to make sure, because I thought I saw another hand. Oh yes, there's Lyric. People keep moving, so I'm like, wait, where'd they go? Go
yeah. Well, regardless of like what resources you're looking at, something that I want educators to really consider it is we're working with neurodivergent students just as a practice, or with any student really, is to assume the young person has good intentions. And what was done to me was that, you know, I'm hyperlexic. Words and reading was my first obsession. I've always had a ridiculously high vocabulary. My written comprehension is far above my spoken comprehension, and all of that. And so it was expected I would naturally do really well in school, and they wanted me to be that good at every single thing I did. So the expectations were really high because of that one skill. And because of that, every time I struggled in the classroom, when I couldn't stay in my chair, when I was crawling under the desk to get away from the sensory overwhelm, when I couldn't be still, when I was making noises, and I was constantly in trouble, it was because I had needs that weren't being met. It wasn't behavior problems, but there's a lot of, in education, I see it even today still, they label autistic and neurodivergent kids as these behaviors, these undesirable behaviors, and they're worried about stopping these behaviors and putting them on behavior plans. This word, autistic behavior, but it's not autistic behavior, it's human behavior. It is the behavior of a tiny human that is struggling to communicate needs that aren't being met, because I didn't even understand a lot of the needs I had until I was diagnosed autistic at 29. So there's no way on earth little me in first grade primary school would have been able to express the needs. My behaviors were me crying out for help because I had needs that weren't being met and weren't being taken care of. And I spent so much time segregated, out in the hallway, go to the hallway, get out of here, go to the principal's office, out. And I needed help. I had anxiety and sensory overload. You know, when I was afraid to read in front of the class, it was like, well, this kid can read, so they're just being stubborn. It was like, I literally was so afraid I couldn't, I would go selectively mute. It's not selective. I hate that word. It's not selective. You have no control over it when all of a sudden your tongue and your mouth is like, brain, forgot where these things are. Where does the mouth go? I know what I want to say. It's as if I no longer have a mouth. It's hard to explain, but I see people nodding here that get it. But that was like, even that was like behavioral. The kid is refusing. It's like, I was incapable, so just compassion, and realize that, anything that you think might be a child being difficult is most likely a child that needs help. That's just something I want to make sure I say. And I don't know how to put my hand down. I gotta figure it out.
Sorry. So when you put your hand up, I think you just click it the same way. You just do lower hand. So go back down to, yeah. Okay, got it? Okay, yeah. I was thinking, I'm sure I know how to do this in a Google Meet. Sophia, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to add in a different presentation, because that one I very, very resonate with what Lyric just said. They totally resonate with this. I'm going to give it a different tiny tint on this one from my own experiences. Is I had the student who was exceptional, who was over and above 200%, so obedient, wanting to get approval, never going to be out of line, just absolutely ridiculously perfect kid, right? So then when that child goes home, right, I don't have my iron brew with me, but no, I'm not sure with my iron brew what happens, because this is what's happening in school, people. This is what's happening in school. So you could be all perfect in front of that teacher, in the classroom, in the school lunch queues, and at break time with all these people. But when you go home, you're going to be crazy like this at home because that's your only safe space. That does not mean that that mother or father or carer at home are the ones causing this. It happened elsewhere, and it's come out here. The top has now come off at home because that's the only safe place. And it does tend to be most often the main carer, tends to be the mother, not always, who they feel comfortable and confident with, that they can actually be themselves. Because, well, sometimes they don't even have a choice. They can literally just get off the bus, and literally be at the door and no more. And that's it. That's all they could do. So I've had to deal with kid with coming off the school bus and puking up, nosebleed, sick, then who walk up the hill and say, right, I'm home from school. And then if I'm going back to the school and saying, we have issues here, no, he's absolutely perfect in school. There's no issues. There must be something at home there. Yeah, clearly, and again, the racism cannot be ignored here, right? Because I'm just the brown mother here complaining. Plus, I'm also, hyperverbal as well. So I will say what I need to say. Therefore, I look entitled. I sound entitled. I'm like, no, I'm questioning you. And then they feel threatened. How dare you question our professionalism? And your son is absolutely perfect in school. Issues are at home because that's where behavior is. Here's another one that I've heard. It's fantastic that he masks at school because that means he just gets so on. I've heard this over the phone. You will not believe it. I was on the phone and I'm like, excuse me, you might like the masking, but I don't like the mental health. Okay, I want my kid to stay alive, right? So, and then the denial of it. I'm very cautious. This is on YouTube, right? And it's live, and I'm very cautious. It's international, which also local. But like I said, I've got to this point in my life where I cannot lose any more than what I have. So I'll just say it as is. I'm on the phone to my child's pastoral teacher saying it is brilliant that he can mask because he gets on with school life. He talks to pals. The said pal he laughs with and talks with are people he is terrified of, who comes home and he tells me, I do not like this person following me. He won't go away from me. I asked the teacher, oh, they were having a laugh by the lockers today. And I'm like, right, okay, so how much do you actually know before you make those decisions? Did you ask? No. How can you say this? So ask the person, ask their experiences. But here's another one. Do you need a 5-minute timeout pass? Do you need one? Because mum's kicking up a fuss about it, basically, right? Like, she's ringing us up and emailing us, why has my son not got this help, that help? Moaning mum, right? A pushy parent that I am. And then the son says, no, you're all right. I don't need the 5-minute pass. Come home. And it's like, so why'd you say no to that? Because I don't want to. And you'll probably see where I'm going with this one. I did not want to burden my teacher. I did not want to give her any extra inconvenience. Like, we do not want to inconvenience people around us, right? So this child, I am trying to teach him that you are entitled to this help. This person is physically getting paid to help you. They have no other, that is why they're in that school and employed, to help people like you. So you saying, yes, please, can I take that pass? You are not causing trouble. And that psychology, as I'm saying it out loud, right, is like, that explains his whole childhood. Like, he does not want to cause trouble, and therefore he will not step a foot out of line. He will be the perfect student so that he doesn't cause anyone else trouble. But when the trouble happens, the shame of it is so extreme that then there's only two extremes, to be honest. Is you're either hiding it and you just don't want to talk about it or feel it, or you want to end your life because you cannot handle the shame. And I've seen that in my own home. I have witnessed it. Like, you want to just that's it. I've upset my mother. I'm just failed at school. I didn't get more than 90%. Dude thought that getting less than 90% meant he was a failure. So this is where I had to teach to school that my son's getting 80% and he's really upset about this. Could you please give him context to make him understand that 80% is hell of a great score for kids his age? Stop, and oh no, he's just hard on himself. He puts too much pressure on himself. So what are you going to do about it? Like, you need to change his mindset by helping him understand context. So this is, as context is key. So, but we can't tell him and disclose, everyone's individual scores. I'm a math teacher. I've been in school. I have marked those tests. I know what averages are. I have, my kids have seen me mark exam papers and test papers at home. I mean, I'm telling my son, thankfully, I'm a teacher. Thankfully, because then I can say, as an expert, not as mum, as a teacher, that son saying that you've got 80% or so, and you missed some mistakes out, you made some mistakes and all that, for him to ease up on himself by giving him context. Well, here's the benchmark. This is where your peers are. Dude, you're up here, right? Because our default is up here, and therefore our average is up here. When we realize that the average of the people we go to school with is actually way down there, maybe then we can look around and think, actually, I am being hard on myself, because it's like no point of saying, and how many people here have heard, you're just being too difficult on yourself, cut yourself some slack, you're just too critical of yourself. Like, these are just noise. What's the point of telling me that if you're not going to aid me in a way where I can think differently? Like, by telling me you're just too hard on yourself, ain't going to help me be not hard on myself, because for me, that's default. That's the way life is. I'm supposed to be the expert, the perfect person. If I didn't get 100%, I'm not worth it. I don't deserve to eat food. I don't deserve to speak to anyone. I don't deserve this and that. We are so self-critical because of the setup that we have around us. So it is so ingrained in our ableism. I was heck of an ableist person when I was a teacher. I was not taught correctly how to be a teacher. My son taught me how to be a teacher, and I'm saying I went to Oxford University for my teacher training, the best course in the whole of freaking UK. I learned teaching for my son, my autistic PDA son. The teacher I am today is only because of him. Not that. That did not prepare me. I gave him a qualification to get me a job, and that's great, and I appreciate all that stuff, right? But being a mother of a PDA kid is, you just can't replace that. So then when I'm going to professionals and telling them something's up, I expect to be heard. I expect that, you know, just because you've got a degree in teaching does not mean that you can bypass me, because I am my son's expert. That's a long time. The parents are ignored. This is what I hear in the Scottish scene with all these Facebook groups that I'm on, that the parents, they are the experts on their child. They raised them. They have that trust bond where that child unmasks at home in their safe environment. They're going to tell their parents. So why would they be telling people who they don't believe? That's another thing. As a big monologue I'm going on here, right? But I'm just totally pulling out. You will not find an autistic person opening up to you and telling you what their needs are. A, because they might not know what they are. So asking them, so what can help you, is useless. Secondly, did you build that trust first? Before you start asking, did you convince them you understand them? Did you convince them that you believe their truth? Because without that, you can be the Senko, the head teacher, you know, you could be the damn president. You do not have that qualification to get that trust of that child for them to open up and for them to get that help from you. That's me there.
Thank you. So some really interesting points that you just made. And I guess what I'm wondering, based on what I just heard, we have parents or guardians who are autistic and parents of autistic kids, right? So you're autistic and neurodivergent, and you have your own children who you want to advocate for, as do many of us. But then there are also families out there who may identify as like autism parents or autism guardians, right? The autism moms, dads, or what have you. And they too might say, you know, I'm a warrior. I will fight for the rights. You know, I want to fix things. I want to advocate for my child. And it's often like we're on different paths. And so I think we all want the same thing. We want for the child to be their best authentic self. But the version of what that might look like is going to depend on your paradigm, is going to depend on what you believe about and what you understand to be the autistic reality. And many of these families are maybe advocating for interventions, early intervention, right? Evidence-based, you know, therapies or treatments or what have you. And some have gone to great lengths to really change their child. They're not trying to hurt their child. I don't believe any, you know, for the most part, families really love their children and want to help them. But I think the dissonance is, as autistic parents or guardians of autistic kids, let's say, the connection that we have and the ability that we have to understand our own lived experiences to help inform practice related to our own children or students is going to be very different from a parent who is not autistic, or maybe identifies as allistic or what have you, or living in a they may be autistic and don't know it, So there's so much internalized ableism that has convinced them that, well, they got through the system by doing this and by making eye contact and by masking. So clearly their child will be fine. They just have to work harder, right? They just have to force themselves to use mouth speak or mouth words. They just have to force themselves to, just do better, just try harder. And oftentimes that's very traumatizing. The family is not wanting to do that in many cases, right? But this is the dissonance, and I'm sorry, I should have done a content warning, but this is what happens when we get into these things. Alyssa, I see your hand up, so go ahead, please.
No amount of evidence that an intervention can achieve a goal I do not have will magically turn into evidence that it can achieve the goals I do have.
Wow. That felt existential, didn't it, Maddie?
It's honestly all so existential, so much to learn from, and I just appreciate everybody's insight into it's connecting that authenticity and lived experience, but breaking down everyone's own journeys and challenges throughout the education system, that there is alternative ways of progressing though, and shifting the focus of deficiency and a lot of the trauma. And I resonated so much with growing up in school and going home, and how that manifested into bad behavior, but also while at school I couldn't compose myself to do with that, and having a lot of self-worth in that, like scores and practices, because when you focus on one specific thing as well, it might not always be about the whole person. So I think that connects academically as well with that pressure, and again, just seeing people in a one size fits all approach. It's much more than that, but yeah, very existential. Yeah.
Absolutely. I just have a request, Alyssa, would you mind repeating what you just stated prior so that somebody else could catch it? They missed it, I think.
No amount of evidence that an intervention can achieve a goal I do not have will magically turn into evidence that it can achieve the goals I do have.
Oh, and thank you for putting that in the chat. Appreciate that. Something to ruminate on. Sorry, I'm going to turn my mic off for a second.
It's like the whole matters of existence there. I'm having a real yeah, I'd love to chat more about that. There's a lot to think about there. Amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely. So connected to masking, when we think about intersectionality and the multiple lenses, from whether they're things that we're born with, aspects of our identity, or parts of, where we find community. Can we talk about a little bit about intersectionality, masking, communication, code switching, all of those things? Like there's so many. Alyssa, I think is getting, I can feel the excitement off of Alyssa right now. It's not really a question. It's just sort of, I want to throw those ideas out there, right? Like when we think about communication, and what does that look like when if we're thinking about broken, people think we're broken. Thoughts, Kai?
So I talked about this a little bit in my interview that I had yesterday with Carolyn in regards to, I guess, masking or autistic traits in general when it comes to autistics of any race or ethnicity outside of white. And the point that I made was that it's not necessarily that these autistic traits are showing up differently from white person to Black person to Hispanic or any other type of ethnic cultural background. It's that society views you differently based on your ethnic or cultural background. And then as a result, the autistic traits, stimming is stimming, eye contact differences are eye contact differences, mutism is mutism, like all these things are what they are, but based on where you stand in society, I, as, you know, a Black femme, am going to be perceived differently when I don't make eye contact versus a white person, or when I stim versus a white person, also depending on the circumstance. One of the examples that I gave was in a situation where a Black person's being pulled over by a police officer, and then is trying to stim, a Black autistic, and is trying to stim to keep themselves calm in that situation that's already going to be stressful. Any sort of movement from the perception of the cop is going to be deemed as, you know, a potential threat. And then that's where we get the issues of police brutality, and to the extent that they are, you know, there are other factors as well, but specifically in regards to autistic Black people, when put in situations like that, who's not going to stim, who's not going to try to calm themselves down, especially if they've, you know, started to begin to unmask and have learned that stimming helps them stay calm in situations that are otherwise stressful. And then, you know, we're put in a position where our lives are at risk because just because any movement of a Black man in a situation with a police officer is deemed threatening, no matter how big or small the movement. So especially if they are stimming, that's even more reason for, you know, a cop to think that a Black man is a threat.
Such a great point. I know I learned so much from the Matthew Rushton story, and a movement that has to happen in order for change to be made. But that assumption, those assumptions about, you know, somebody's lying to you because they're not making eye contact, somebody's behaving defiantly or aggressively, and then when that's a Black person who's autistic trying to be their authentic self, like I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine, because I have white skin. And so I think that's a big part of the reason we're putting this summit on, because even within the autistic community, there is not enough advocacy for our Black, Indigenous, people of color within the autistic community. And all of these layers of identity need to be recognized, need to be embraced, and we have to see historically how these aspects of identity are impacting the way people within our own autistic community or neurodivergent community are being treated, not just by the people who are not autistic and neurodivergent, but by people in the community. So, like, sorry, Kai, go ahead. I don't want to rant. Go ahead.
Oh, I think that was my hand still up from before. No, you're totally fine.
All right, thank you. Maddie, was that an up and down hand, or did you have something you wanted to say?
It was just a clap, just to echo that sentiment that there's a real issue of that, of you know, representation and like allyship. I think like being tokenistic and then actually building that equity and equality, that a lot of this privilege being monopolized by certain influential figures, just for it links to acceptance month, it links to a lot of these topics. So this is why this summit is so vital and such a pleasure, you know, to not be a one-off thing, to show actual solidarity and not just for, you know, something like that. It's very important, and I've got such, you know, respect for Kai, everything Autistics Unmasked, and so many others involved in many other things. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I'm also watching our time too. We are coming up on 7:45, just about our time here in Canada. So we've been in about like over an hour and a half doing, touching on so much. I know. I'm like, wow, where'd the time go? But let's hear from Alyssa first, and then maybe if we want to kind of think about some final thoughts, messages to the community about this topic. Go ahead, Alyssa.
I think about connections between cross-neurotype stuff and cross-cultural stuff. We can learn how to do cross-neurotype communication better from the parts of cross-cultural communication that are done well. And we can see that the problems are not unique to neurodivergent people. I noticed overlap between my experiences studying abroad and my experiences as an autistic person. However, I got more leeway for my differences when studying abroad than when people assumed it was all about autism. This is common for white neurodivergent people.
Mhm. Thank you for that. Does anyone want to respond to that or speak to any other aspects of their identity or the complexities? I know Kai and Autistics Unmasked have run a number of really powerful spaces on the topic of intersectionality. And, you know, there's just so many layers that, like from the time that we're born through the school system, like people mentioned, the justice system, through upper, you know, into getting into careers and promotions and all of those things. And certainly everyone has a unique experience, but does anyone else want to share their thoughts or hopes, or maybe a next step where we need to go in the autistic community itself when it comes to you know, raising just where we go next? Go ahead, Prince X.
A lot of what I was going to, like what I was thinking with the initial question, Kai, just they touched on it so beautifully. So I didn't really have much more to add there, but that's why I think kind of going into what can we do spaces like Autistics Unmasked, which I just have a deep love for, that community, are just so important and needed and need to, I just think it needs to, how am I trying to say this? More people need to see how important it is to have intersectionality within this space, is basically what I'm trying to say, because learning that about myself literally changed my life, because it was actually meeting other Black autistic people that sort of made me realize that I was autistic as well. Just because of kind of how Kai mentioned, the way that me being myself was sort of addressed and treated, and even the ways my family told me to suppress certain things just to be safe, or, you know, I just think like just more efforts to have intersectionality within these groups, but as well as in the research, in the people actually, in these experts, you know, that are putting out all this information. Make sure that you are looking into that as well, because it's extremely important.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and that ties into Jinx had made a comment as well. And I apologize if I haven't got to everybody's things in the chat. I'm trying to manage those, but there's been quite a few. So Jinx has said, I also think it's important for Black, Indigenous people of color, or autistic folks to be involved in research so the literature becomes less biased. The participatory approaches to research can allow folks who have no interest in academia as a profession to be involved in a more central role or be able to highlight their experiences. Yeah, and in the media too, right? Like when we think about, I know we talked earlier about children's literature and resources for in classes, but you know, although there may be lots of coding of autistic perspectives, representation in movies, in television programs is still very limited to like, yeah, right? It's still very limited to like, you know, one autistic actress who's played a lead of a show, and she's a wonderful, great actress, but is a young white blonde woman. And I mean, at least no offense to the white men, but at least it wasn't another white man. But I think even to white men, Quinn said, Autistic the other day, and there's a panel that he and Jorn Benton from Autistic Collaboration Trust that I was fortunate to be in, and Quinn had said how he's gone in and out of the autistic community, identifying in the autistic community, because there was a certain point when, you know, he had this diagnosis, and then Rain Man came out, and then it was kind of like, oh man. So just imagine being diagnosed for this length of time, and trying to be yourself, but then being, you know, essentially bullied, teased, like dropping a bunch of toothpicks or whatever it is that they, you know, to see if he could count them, right? That whole stereotypical representation of the certainly not accurate for a white male person. That's not how autistic people, you know, everybody's very, very different, very unique. But further, the representation in the media, I can't think of any people in shows that are, let's say, Black or Indigenous for sure, and also have been, you know, are identifying as autistic. Does anybody know of representation at all of Black autistic characters? Like in, and I look for them. Like, this is, you know, and
there's one in a video game, and I can't remember the name of it right now.
Oh,
but what the heck? So many people I know play that game, but I can't play video games because I will get addicted, and it's not good for me. Right. But I know I saw one, but that was a while ago. And we should have way more than one. You know, exactly. And it's a video game. It's, you know, only the people who play the game are probably gonna see it. But somebody might know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's we need to do so much better, right? Like, it's, how can our kids find role models and feel represented? Kai, sorry, go ahead. I didn't see your hand there, please.
That's okay. My comment was actually not on this particular question, but it was going back to a message that someone sent in the chat, and I'm trying to go back and see who it was. I think it was Jinx, pointing to that, you know, BIPOC autistic folks need to be involved in the research. But I think even that is not enough. I think what needs to happen is, you know, these white researchers who may be autistic, you know, white autistic researchers who have the funds or the resources to do the research and want that input from BIPOCs, just give the project to them. Just give the funds and give the resources straight to the BIPOCs that you are wanting their input from. It's not enough to involve them in the process. We want to be the ones leading it. We should be the ones leading it. It shouldn't be a white autistic, you know, doing research and co-signed with, you know, Kai or Calamity or whatever. It should be Kai and Calamity are leading the research. We are being funded for our research as the, you know, as the Black people, as Indigenous people, as people of color who are autistic, who our perspective is needed. Obviously, you know, you guys are saying you want our perspective. Then the white autistics who have these funds and research, these funds and resources, just need to give them to us so that we can do with it, because we don't have the same advantage to find these funds and find these resources to be able to do the research that needs to be done from our perspective.
Thank you so much. And before we conclude, I'm just wondering, just last thoughts, wishes for the community, again, to try and dispel that idea that we're broken. We know that whether diagnosed or not, there's still a deficit lens that people see you as, right? If you hear the word autism or autistic as an aspect of someone's identity, the default is that there's something wrong with you, and that's still the default. So any kind of last thoughts on where you think we need to go, how we do that, just anything. I don't want to really direct. I want you to just any other ideas that you want to share before we round out.
Just that reminder, that we're people. We're not just our weaknesses. Like every other single human being, we are a combination of our strengths and our weaknesses. And even though, neurodivergent people have different strengths and weaknesses that may be less common among the general population, that doesn't make them wrong. And I'd say in fact, it's part of the diversity. Like, for example, why does it matter that I am the worst proofreader I know? So many people are good at proofreading. Why do I have to be good at that too? I've got some other random skills that most people are like, that's really cool. Like, I don't know why you can do that. My skills are different too. So it's like we can work with that if it's instead of made out to be a problem. Like, okay, this is how this person shows up. I can support them, meet that individual person where they are. It's not like we can't look at, oh, these are what autistic people need. It's like autistic people are people. Every single human, whether autistic or not, needs to be met as an individual, single human being, and help to be the best version of themselves, whatever that is. We need to stop comparing ourselves to each other. That's, I think, the big problem. And that's what really put me to a point where I almost didn't think I could be worth existing anymore before I was diagnosed autistic, because I had constantly been comparing myself to other people. I thought I was a neurotypical and I wasn't good enough at being neurotypical. And I'm like, why are all these things that are so easy for other people so hard for me? I am a complete failure. I'm a garbage person. Like, that was like what I believed. I'm not worth existing. Like, I got to that point. And then I was diagnosed autistic and I'm like, oh, this is what's wrong with me. And the doctor's like, no, this is not what's wrong with you. Your brain works differently. And now you've got to learn to work with your mind instead of against it, because you've been working against yourself for almost 30 years. And that shift, I'm so grateful that doctor was someone who was going to empower me instead of letting me go where, that's just like, there's two paths. There's the dark side, or there's accepting yourself. And if I would have gone towards that other side, I don't think I would be who I am today. And I don't know if I would have recovered from that place where I was like, I don't think I'm a worthy person of existing. And now I feel like I'm happy I exist, at least, right now. I mean, mental health is a roller coaster. You never know where you'll be. I'm grateful for the good days, but there's just that alternative of hating yourself. And I hated myself 5 years ago. And I don't want that for anybody.
Thank you. So powerful, Lyric. And, it comes back to the world thinking we're broken. I don't think you would have been born hating yourself. I don't think any of us would be born feeling that way. And that's, I think, the message that educators, that families, that the society, from my perspective, needs to know. Just because we make up a smaller portion of the population, it doesn't mean that our way of experiencing the world, our way of communicating, our way of processing information, is wrong. And to default to us being the bad version of human, the incorrect version of human, the something's missing version of human, which incidentally, anyone who's watching this, that's a big piece of that. That's a big part of that puzzle piece controversy, right? There's a whole lot of layers to that, but there's nothing missing. There's absolutely nothing missing. It's just that we communicate, we process the information, we receive everything in very different ways from a non-autistic human. And even within that, everybody's individual, everybody's unique. And that those spiky skill sets and that trying to live and cope with a world that's not built for us then has added those layers of stress and pressure and trauma. It's this very self-fulfilling, detrimental kind of cycle, because we're getting these negative messages about who we are, and it's deficit-based, and oh, you must need help, and oh, this and that. But then we're also hating ourselves, and trying to become somebody else, which is then further traumatizing us. So it's like, it's this real cycle of abuse because of ableist oppression. And I just want to say, and I know, Maddie, I saw your hand, but I just want to make sure we know that I don't think any of us here are trying to say that autistics don't have challenges. But every single person on the planet has challenges. Every single person on the planet has what we might call gifts or strengths or interests. And autistic neurology is different, not less. And I can communicate just as effectively with other autistics as neurotypicals or allistics can communicate with neurotypicals or allistics, right? We think about that double empathy problem. It's how do we get to the point where allistics or neurotypicals
Correction.
realize, what's
Does
again?
someone put in there, actually, autistics working with autistics work better than non-autistics working with non-autistics. That's
Thank you.
Shaw's work. Yep, it's there.
And thank you. Actually, I remember we talked about that because the data in Damien Milton's work did show that autistics communicated even more, just ever so slightly more effectively with other autistics compared with allistics communicating with allistics. So, but the default is still that we have the communication disorder, right? And that's what's so infuriating. We have to value all types of communication. Sorry, so Maddie, go ahead, please, and then Alyssa.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask Alyssa, would you prefer to go after me or before? If you had something prepared, I'm happy either way, whatever's best for you.
Why don't you go ahead then, Alyssa, and then we'll hear from you first. Thanks, Maddie.
We know we're different. You get a say in how we understand that difference, but trying to pretend we're the same won't go well.
Thank you very much. Maddie, go ahead.
Oh, thanks very much. So yeah, in terms of closing remarks, I want to start by eternally thanking everybody for being here on the panel or speaking or joining the stream, participating in any way. It's been a truly life-affirming experience. This summit and learning together with you is a real privilege in many respects. I just want to say that the philosophy of the question, how can we be ourselves, and a lot of what we've discussed tonight and in the panel have been some really intense issues we faced. Yet what we are doing now in this whole summit conference, being together, we're shaping a neurodivergent present and future, and really being innovators within that, and connecting it deep at the whole history of civilization. It's been built by the neurodivergents, the autistics, those who've went against normality, who've questioned authority, oppression, hatred, racism, sexism, classism, and everything that's been developed. So in these moments where everything seems against us, I just want to share that everybody, that it's doing the work and advocacy that will lead to a bigger legacy than even in our time that we feel now will last eternally. And I just want to connect it really with, neoliberal capitalism, and how it doesn't mean that we have to be these geniuses or great speakers with things as well. Just embracing that autistic way and saying we have those human rights, disability rights, the right to be loved, respected, cared for, to fight oppression with others across the world, no matter which gender, race, sexuality, and class they've been in. That is something in a world that has got such a lack of meaning in direction. I think everybody should be very proud of themselves, of like what everything we've been through and are doing, and not in this toxic, resilient way or patronizing way. It really is doing that. So going forward, you know, being so authentically proud and having to really, yeah, be holding those convictions against oppression and the backlash that will come. It's because change is coming. Whenever anything great is moved, there is that pushback. And I appreciate those who are willing to learn, who are holistic and neurotypical and wanting to be there on that. But appreciating that yeah, no matter where you're from, you will have the right to be heard and be respected, to have housing. And I just encourage people to take value in neurokin across the world, as we call it that. This is, you know, a family of minds and ideas and values, and we're going to have disagreements. But the more we keep coming together and learning from each other, yeah, the future is autistic and neurodivergent in many ways. So yeah, keep connecting with everybody. You've all got the right to be there. I know about imposter syndrome, but everybody has the right. So I wish you all the love, strength, and serenity in the world. I mean that. Thank you.
Thank you, Maddie. I just want to highlight too, in the chat, and again, I apologize if I missed some things. I'm trying to go through it real quickly, but Kai was just mentioning that there is one of their researchers, and I read it and then I've lost it because it's Kai. Do you want to mention the name? One of your researchers is doing work on BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people of color, autistics. Oh, there it is, AJ. So something the research team that Autistic Unmasked is focusing on is those BIPOC or Black, Indigenous people of color autistic experiences, led by AJ, who is a Black, Indigenous people of color BIPOC autistic person. So very exciting that that work is happening. That word, Maddie, that you used, resiliency, doesn't that drive you all just because I think autistics, if I may say so, are some of the most resilient people in the world because we have no choice. And those of you who are autistic, as well as Black, Indigenous, people of color, hijabi wearing, multiply neurodivergent or otherwise disabled, different communications that are not the default in society, historically more marginalized than those of us who have, more privilege, unearned privilege, like resilience, like we're resilient because we have to be. And I know that for me, we're here together, and I'm just so honored and, like I say, humbled to be working with all of you. This is the beginning. I know it's not the beginning, I really know that, but this is the beginning of something new because it's about, and I have to say, Kieran Rose did say this when we went in, we met with him in the fall and did some training, fantastic, highly recommend that work. We can open the door, but people have to walk in, because you cannot walk into my head or Prince X's head, Sophia's head, like you can't. You have to listen, you have to dig deeper. And I joked on Twitter, bring an excavator, because this is not time for spades and shovels. We're gonna get the excavators out, folks, because yeah. So any other last thoughts from this most amazing panel before we close out this evening? I know, Alyssa, that says it all. I'm tired too. and Alyssa's already did 2 of these today. I want to highlight, Alyssa did an amazing workshop for educators, rave reviews today over our lunch hour here in Canada and Toronto area. Do check out the rest of the Intersectional Infinity Summit. It is a team effort. I want to give a shout out to, I have Maxine, Natasha, and Jacqueline here who are such valued members of the 9 as well, and always either behind the scenes or helping out in some way, creating and helping to organize. And we've also got not on camera, but Crystal, who has been with me for like over a decade, running these amazing events and different things like this. And she's got 2 little ones at home, so she can't be with us all the time, but So many great people behind the scenes that are helping out, and so appreciate all of your effort. So with that being said, thank yous in place. Do check out the summit. Thank you again to Sophie. Where are you there? So you moved again. Every time you turn around, you're somewhere else. Thank you again for helping to live stream once again with Almazar. The recording will be available soon. To those of you that weren't able to catch the beginning of it or want to watch it again. And I know there was some challenges for a few people getting in. I hope you were able to get in through the live stream, but if not, we will make sure that recording is available. So, and we will sort that out. Thank you again, everyone. Sending you lots of love, respect, and as Maddie says, solidarity. So appreciate you all. Have a great evening, morning, day, wherever you are in the world. Nicely done.
Night night.
Bye, everyone.